What's going on, guys? Welcome back to NolanTCG, and we are back here for another month of Introduction to. So this month is Introduction to Exorcisters. The deck, very hyped up when it was announced, was often compared to Sky Striker in what it can do and basically the way it plays. It's a whole bunch of like one card extra deck summoning mechanic utilization. Ultimately though, deck has been overshadowed by Brave in its own set. Brave is the much better engine out of the two. If you're chasing stuff out of this set, I would very much recommend going for Brave over Exorcisters, but Exorcisters does seem like generally a fun deck. It could be Rogue, like in formats, it can steal a lot of things. You do have like the flex ability to play like random mechanics that you wouldn't normally see running around, and the Exorcister engine itself does add quite a lot of consistency and can also like disrupt in random ways. But as always, before we do get started on this video, please remember to drop down below and hit that subscribe button if you are new here, because we are always happy to have new people on the channel. And let's get on into these deck profiles. So, starting us off, as you see on screen, we have an Exorcist list. This is from the OCG. This was a top 4 list from an event in China, I believe. So, yeah, obviously, OCG, the event was dominated by Brave. This was like the one thing that poked through, so figured this was probably a good list to go through, given that it seemed to do somewhat decently against Brave. We will go through the cards one by one, so each of the new Exorcisters, like normal, we'll go through what they do, their kind of general interactions, and then we'll go through the list as a whole. So starting us off, this Duelist did choose to play Elaine. Elaine is probably the worst one in my opinion. It is not a plus like the rest, like it is just a general kind of, not a minus, but you kind of just recycle back. So Elaine is, you can place one Exorcister card from your hand to the bottom of the deck as cost. So yeah. Gets ashed, you go minus, hence the that this is probably the worst one consideration. Then if you control Sophia, gain 800 life points. I'm fairly sure the only reason this Duelist played Elaine was because you do need both names to trigger one of the other card effects, so you did need to play Elaine if you want to trigger the other one, which is, I think, is just a straight draw. And then, as you go through, if your opponent has a card that leaves the graveyard, you can crow it, you can have them summon it back, you XE summon, using this card you control as a material. They all typically have that effect, which is how you get into that one card XE summoning. I was going to discuss that later, but we'll discuss it now. It's quite surprising that a lot of these lists don't play something like a Diddy Crow, given that you can like crow your opponent and that will like force the activation of your Exorcisters, unless they miss timing or anything. That's if, yeah, so you could like crow them, and then, yeah, just XE summon from there. So it's a little bit surprising as to why Crow's not played more. You do have like Called by the Grave at 2 over there, which is quite good. Effectively is going to be doing the same thing where you can Call by the Grave them, then your Exorcister triggers, which is always somewhat decent. After that, though, we do go into the next one. So this is Elise. So if you control an Exorcister monster, free extension. Special summon this card from their hand. And if you control Stella, which is the next one, or the last one we'll get into, gain 800 life points. This is your general extension package. It still contains the same effect if a card leaves your opponent's graveyard. You can special summon one Exorcister XYZ monster using this card you control as a material. They all, yeah, again, like I said earlier, have that same effect. It's where the kind of Sky Striker stuff gets into, except you have to interact with your opponent. You can't rely on doing this yourself. Then next off after that, we have Sophia. So this is the one that combos off with Stella. Sophia is, if you control another Exorcister monster, you can draw 1 card. Then if you control Elaine, gain 800 life. Yeah, just card, pretty standard, straightforward, just draw 1. It does get you just straight plus, as opposed to Elaine, where you have to, as cost, put a card at the bottom of your deck, then draw 1. Yeah, that's why I much rather prefer it. You will see in my list, I'm not playing the card it combos off with at all, which does render it less searchable, but you are still going to be able to access your Release and your Stella, which are more general extensions. But that does bring us to the next one, which is Stella. So this is during the main phase, you can special summon one Exorcister monster from your hand. Then if you control Elise, gain 800 life points. So in my list, you'll see we typically would want to be going from Stella into Sophia. Then we have the Elise to combo off with that as well. Gets you to the 3 names on board. Elaine doesn't really have a free way of interacting, and it is generally a -1 if it gets hit. And then we go into our hand traps after this. Yeah, standard stuff. This is playing a DPE package for the rest of our monster lineup. The only other monster of interest is the fact that they played one Zora, the Magistus Flame. So effectively, you're going to be normal summoning it, equipping from extra deck, and then you can special summon a spellcaster from hand, which adds you the consistency here. You can go into Xyz plays after that, with the Magistus and the Exorcister that you've summoned. Of course, you typically want to be going into Stella, so Stella can extend again. You can go into then an Xyz, and you can have then the free summon for the next turn. That's generally how you're going to be resolving that engine. Then we go into our Exorcister spell and trap cards after that. So first off, we have Ameno. So main is pay 800 life points, then target one Exorcister you control, special summon one from the extra deck, with a different name to that monster you control. Then the end is just your restriction. So that's just pretty basic stuff. And then after that, we go into Exorcister packs. This one will probably change name. I wonder if they were at PAX, and this is like the desolate wasteland that is what PAX is nowadays. If you get that reference, yeah, cool. Everyone watching that video should get that reference. So it is during the main phase, pay 800 life points. You'll see the common theme of pay 800 life points. It's why the monsters gain 800. Kind of balances you out a little bit. You can add one Exorcister monster from your deck to hand, except Exorcister card. Sorry, didn't realize that says card. I've always thought that said monster. Interesting. If that Exorcister monster whose name specifically listed on that card is on the field or in the graveyard, you can special summon the activated monster. So if you have the Elaine, you special summon the Sophia. It's rare that you're going to be having the Sophia and special summoning the Elaine unless you want to fix your hand and go and draw 2 cards. Still technically just going, I guess that's not even +1 because you've just searched your ability to mulligan. So that's like at best a minus, at best going even. Yeah, as you can see, that's why I'm very not big on playing Elaine. Elaine's just not the best. It does render like Sophia the ability to search and special, but yeah, not the best. And then we have the restriction, I believe, placed after that. So let's say you can special summon the added monster. You can just activate. It doesn't lock you like the other ones. Okay, and then lastly we have the trap card. The trap card is Exorcister Vadis. This card is very good. So pay 800 life points, special summon from your deck one Exorcister monster, and add one Exorcist monster whose name is listed on that monster, but shuffle it into the deck during the end phase. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn you activate this effect, except for Exorcister monsters. You can only activate one Exorcister Vadis once per turn. So this is another reason why you can play the one Elaine. Again, you're typically going to be wanting to use Sophia on your turn anyway, because it's not a quick effect to draw, so it's just going to be sitting on your board. So summoning a Vadis just still isn't the best. You can go for Stella, you can go for Elise, and then that will just generally play itself out. You get the extension for next turn, and then you get the other one. The only reason where Vadis I would see coming into factor is if you can special the Elaine, because you don't really care about Elaine's effect, and then you can have the Sophia in hand, and then you just kind of go off from there on the following turn, and hopefully you can, turn your Elaine into something else. I really, really wish this trap had, like, a DD Crow effect, like if it could crow something, then special from deck, because that would be really cool, or like, you can banish it from grave to crow, something, just give it something else, would have made it much better. That then does bring us to the extra deck, of course. So here we are playing, 3 of the one good one that has a very complicated name. They all have quite complicated names in the extra deck. They're not pretty standard like the main deck. We will start with the 3 of, because it is the best one. So it's Exorcister Michaelis. So it cannot be destroyed by battle with monster special summon from the graveyard. If your opponent's playing a deck that special summons from the graveyard, rather cute. It can't be destroyed by card effect. Or it can be destroyed by card effect. It kind of sucks. Otherwise, it'd be good to play against Infernoid. Just like completely ruin their day. Yes, that's an application that's coming up quite a lot in the current format. So you can only use each of the following effects of Exorcister Michaelis once per turn. If this card was Exy summoned this turn using an Exorcister monster you control, quick effect, you can target one card your opponent controls or in the graveyard, banish it. This does, of course, if you banish the card in the graveyard, it removes it. It's your Crow effect. Then you can prop off another one, and then you keep going from there. And then lastly, if you can detach one material from this card, add one Exorcist as well as trap card from your deck to your hand. So you're just going to be using it to add you more general consistencies. It's the reason why this card is a 3 of. You can very clearly see that. It's not a negation or anything. Those follow up in other cards. But ultimately, this is going to be crowing. Then you can special summon something else. If you end on 2 Exorcister monsters and your opponent removes something from their graveyard, you go hard plus. Then we go into the other ones. So we've got Caspatel. So this one is kind of destroyed by battle with a monster special summon from the graveyard. Of course, same effect. You can only use each of the following effects one per turn. If this card is XP summoned using Exorcister monster as a material, you can activate this effect for the rest of the turn. Neither player can special summon monsters from their graveyard. So it is a hard Abyss Dweller that, I guess it doesn't stop the activation of effects, just stops them from coming back. Then you can detach one material from this card, add one Exorcister monster from your deck to your hand. Reason why you don't really play this card at 3 is because you only necessarily need to shut them down once, and then you can kind of manipulate everything from there. The other Exes handle other things, which we'll get into now. So next off, you have Jabreen, so Exorcister Jabreen. So you can, again, cannot be destroyed by monster special summon from the graveyard, just your typical thing. Really, really going to stop those Infernoids if they can't destroy by card effect, which they can, which sucks. We're on tangents though. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn, as always. If this card is Xyz summoned this turn using an Exorsister monster Exorsister monster as a material, doesn't need to be you control. You can target one effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn. So this it doesn't need to immediately trigger. That is something to keep in mind. It just gives it a quick effect for the turn that you can just kind of at any point go bang, you're negated, away we go. And then you can detach one material from this card. For the rest of the turn, all Xyz monsters use control gain 800. That is the least relevant of all of the effects. I believe the other one's going to make them lose 800. So then lastly, you have one Exorsister Boost to Feel. You cannot be destroyed by monsters separate from the graveyard. General restrictions as always. If this card is Xyz summoned using an Exorsister you control as a material, you can activate this effect. For the rest of the turn, neither player can activate effects in the graveyard. This is your Heart Abyss Dweller. So your other one stops the summoning, like Sky Prison. And then, yeah, Duelists to Fell is your Heart Abyss Dweller. And then you can detach one material from this card, then target one monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. That is not a quick effect. That is something for your turn, which kind of, not the best. I guess you can kind of work your way around it, but it kind of works as it works. That is, though, the list from the OCG. We've gone through everything now. You've kind of seen the list on board for a little while. We'll get into the list that I'm looking at next. Okay, next off, you can see now my Exorsister list. So this is more generally focused around just effectively rank 4 turbo. You're going to be just slamming through a whole bunch of different stuff. Either OTKing your opponent, hopefully with that double or nothing, or just kind of generally controlling the game with your ability to go into Xyz, and they all kind of are going to be doing different things. So starting us off for my list, we've got the 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring with the 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Those are our monster-based hand traps. Effect Veiler, again, still pretty good in the current format, but that may well change when we get to the next one. And then we go into our Exorcister lines. We've got 3 Elise, 3 copies of Sophia, and 3 Stella. Then for more generic extension, we've got 3 copies of Gigabyte and 3 copies of Ascended Sage. Ascended Sage is going to be coming up because we're going to be using the rank up magic to get us through into transitioning into a Hope Harbinger to give us that negation going first. And then for our spells, we've got the 1 Call by the Grave, 1 Double or Nothing again for OTKs, 2 copies of Memento with 3 copies of Pax, and 1 copy of the rank up magic after that. For our traps, we've got the 3 copies of Vardis, 3 copies of Impermanence, 3 Judgment, and 2 Strike. Again, just a lot of like stop your opponent, and then hopefully you OTK them next turn with the Utopia packages and everything like that. Then for our extra deck, we are playing the 1 Zeus. You are Xyz summoning, so Xyz summoning gonna go boom. A lot of your locks don't necessarily lock you, because you're gonna be summoning on your opponent's turn with a lot of these cards. You can still go into Zeus on your turn. So it's yeah, which locks you? Is it Pax? The cards that lock you only lock you for the turn, so if you're using them on your opponent's turn, it doesn't necessarily matter. Everything here is a quick effect, so you can trigger it on your opponent's turn, then it comes back around to you, you just Zeus them, away you go. It's rare, though, that you're going to be using an Exorcister as a Zeus target, because you're only going to be getting a 2 material Zeus off that, so it is something to consider. Then your standard lines after that, we've got 1 of each of the small ones with the 3 of Michaelis. Then for the rest of our Xyz, we've got the 1 Hope Harbinger to bring out off our rank up package. We've got the 1 Utopia and the Utopia double for that. Then we've got the 1 copy of Utopic Dragonair, so we're going to be ranking up into this off the rank up magic, because then that gets us access to our Hope Harbinger. 1 copy of Utopic Draco Future with the 1 copy of Utopic Future for that engine. 1 copy of Utopic Future Slash, and then last card is 1 copy of Utopic Sage, again, just for that whole general engine that's going to be revolving around in our deck. But that does wrap us up here for this month's introduction to. As always, if you do have recommendations or things that you're going to be playing in Exorcisters, do make sure to comment them down below. And as always, I've been Ben from NolanTCG, and have a good afternoon, everybody.